and welcome to the Patients Getting Paid podcast, where I interview people with chronic illnesses that have found ways to make money that accommodate their health and experts that can teach us all how to do it better. I'm Kathy Reagan Young, host of the PGP podcast and creator of the Patients Getting Paid online course. If you haven't already, head over and get on the waiting list for the course, and you'll receive a weekly newsletter with tips and tricks for creating a chronicpreneur lifestyle and a list of gigs available that week. Sign up at patientsgettingpaid.com/list. Today's guest is Christa Fairbrother, a chronicpreneur dealing with arthritis and lupus since she was a kid. Her story is an interesting one where she's sharing her passion for what has helped her so much of her life and with her chronic illness, yoga, and she's building a business around it. Welcome, Christa.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. This is great. I read all about your story. So interesting. So if you would please share that story of you, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, your background, whatever makes you you.
Yeah. So modern day me is easiest to start with. Right. I am kind of a total nerd. I really like Tolkien, fantasy. I these days have very few animals, but in the past I had tons of animals. At one time I had 5 horses. I was a farrier. Take it a little farther back, I was a blacksmith and had an art career. So I've done a lot of really diverse things.
Really cool things. I would call that cool, not just diverse, but cool.
Well, I've had definite phases to my life. So now why we're talking today is, yes, I've been living with these chronic illnesses and I teach yoga in Florida and I live with my family. I have 2 teenage boys and my partner on the west coast of Florida.
Excellent. And how's your weather right now?
So for us, we're really happy because it climbed up to about 78 today. Okay. And it was sunny. The fog has moved in, but it's been cold for us. And you're going to laugh. And everybody hearing this is going to laugh because it's February and it was 60 and we were freezing.
Oh, poor thing. I feel so bad for you.
Things. Yes, everybody.
We just had snow, so.
Exactly. So if you live here, you're a total lizard and you adapt and you just can't take it when it's under 70.
Right. So, do you do any yoga outdoors?
I teach yoga in the pool. So the weather is very impactful for me. So that's what I do is Aqua yoga. And obviously Florida's great for it because we can be in the pool outside almost 12 months of the year. January does get tough.
Yeah. But tell me again, where in Florida are you? I know West Coast.
I'm in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
On the West Coast, it's a little town called Gulfport. It's kind of south of Tampa.
Okay, and so we're just coming off of the Super Bowl in Tampa. That was kind of crazy, huh?
Yes.
Beautiful
Tampa
stadium.
Bay. Yes, that's
Tampa
what
Bay.
Tampa Bay, because we have so many. So it was a good game. It was nice to see the home team win.
Yeah, that's something, having your own your team win, right? I think that was the first time, right, that they had it in the home team's stadium.
If you've been a Bucks fan, you have suffered for a lot of years.
It was your turn, my friend.
But I do know, I can feel for people who are. Yes, they earned it, definitely.
Right, I gotcha. Yeah, good. All right, so since this is the Patients Getting Paid podcast, let's get into that aspect of your life. Would you share the story of your journey to chronicpreneurism? I mean, you gave us a little bit of that you had some cool iterations to your career, but how did you get into this?
A little different. So you mentioned I've had this stuff since I was a kid, but I was not actually diagnosed till I was 41. So a lot of what I told you I did before was totally ignorant of the fact that I had all these things going on. So when I was a farrier, which is a horseshoer, not someone who drives the ferry boats. I did
Thank you for the clarification.
It was in Washington State, so it was a needed clarification.
Yeah.
When I phased out of doing that, it was literally because I couldn't take the cold. And now I know, looking back, I couldn't deal with the cold because of these health issues I had.
Yeah.
But so, as you said, I have what my official diagnosis is mixed connective tissue disease. So I have a combination connective tissue disease, and it often pairs up for people. So it will pair up as the rheumatoid arthritis pair, which is what I have, or it'll get the scleroderma myositis pair, which is not something I've had to deal with. So that's what I live with. And basically, I kind of gave you a little bit of my backstory. And then when my kids, I have two boys, and when both of them were finally in school, it was like, well, I've been doing yoga for 20 years. I think maybe it's time for me to go to yoga teacher training, because I clearly love this. I didn't necessarily intend to teach, but it was really impactful to me. And I thought, this would be great.
Yeah.
When I entered yoga teacher training, I actually had just a lupus diagnosis. And in the middle of training, I switched rheumatologists and I got this other diagnosis. And they, of course, had imaged all my bones and come back with, well, the arthritis is eating you up everywhere and you've had this forever. And it was just like, how is this possible? I literally was a professional blacksmith for years, bucked tons of hay. I had done all these things. And I shod horses and never took a day off work with a herniated disc. I was, yes, a little crazy. And you talk about people's pain management, but
right.
It was clearly that the yoga had really helped me. And I had kind of coincidentally stumbled into this self-management tool that was so impactful. And that really inspired me to move forward with being a yoga teacher, specifically for people who live with these autoimmune rheumatological diseases. So I immediately went on, after completing the initial training, to do yoga for arthritis training and aquatic yoga training. And that's the one I really fell in love with. So now I really specialize in aqua yoga, which is a really kind, welcoming modality for people who have a lot of chronic health issues, not just arthritis, but things like MS or Parkinson's or joint replacements.
Yeah, not because I would assume, because of course the yoga is so good for you, but the buoyancy of the water allows you to do so much more, right?
Exactly. Just the physiological response that everybody's bodies have to immersion is really beneficial for a lot of conditions. And then for people with joint problems, osteoarthritis is obviously the most common kind of arthritis, so it doesn't have that autoimmune component, but it affects the buoyancy, helps those people just as much as anybody with rheumatoid arthritis. Yes.
And it's fun to get in a pool. I mean, I just think that's just fun.
Totally.
Right?
Because, and that's actually one of those studies they've done in terms of, you talk about, well, what's the research on this? Aquatic exercise, people are more compliant with it. So when you go to your doctor and they lecture you about going, you need exercise, you are more likely to stick with an aquatic exercise program than a land-based program, because the aquatic exercise doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And it's again, a little more social.
It's fun.
It's fun. And right now, especially with COVID, it's like social. You mean I can actually be outside and talk to somebody 6 feet away?
Right.
That really helps too. So right now, this atmosphere of COVID, it's a safe outdoor workout. And I say that obviously in Florida. For a lot of the country, it still has to be an indoor pool activity.
Sure. Right. Yeah. In February. Here in February, as we are.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about the impact of your business to your chronic illness. So I know you've done all these other things. You learned yoga, you saw how it helped you. And so it was kind of in the service of others that you went into it. Yes. Were you thinking in terms of, this is going to be a career move for me, or?
It's definitely evolved, kind of, as you heard. So I had, my last career job was working as a museum educator, which I had resigned from when I had my kids, because my partner travels a lot. He's gone a lot. And I had these 2 young kids, and it was a very long commute. And so it just wasn't, and I don't have any family in town. It just, was tough. And my first son had some health problems when he was born, so he needed a little extra care. So that was a challenge. So I had gone back to work between my kids, right? But then when I have 2, it's like, oh, now paying for daycare of 2, it's just like, in the arts, no, not so much.
Right.
I did have a salary job with benefits and everything, but still daycare is so expensive. There's just, the math didn't work. So it was kind of a transition in terms of, well, I wasn't doing anything else, and I would kind of try. I was self-employed before, so I had the experience being self-employed, that there wasn't that big barrier of just the thought of self-employment, which I recognize is scary for a lot of people, totally understandably. But then it became, okay, well, how do I, to speak to the point of how do you balance these things? For me, a big benefit at the time, and then continue hearing moving forward, is it's a little bit of exercise in small increments, which is really important for somebody with a chronic illness. And you think about somebody with a joint condition, well, we need strong muscles to support weak joints. And so the fact that I can get this little bit of exercise all the time is perfect for me. It's actually been tough during COVID because obviously my teaching hours have dropped significantly, and I've had to start exercising like normal people, not just like teaching and doing my thing, but like have to like write it in the calendar and exercise, you know, because it hasn't been as much as it was. And so it has impacted me. So, and that's the plus side. So then the downside, because, you know, not everything is perfect, is because I have lupus, I have to be really careful in the sun. And here I am in Florida teaching outside all the time. So I have to be really careful with my sun exposure and think about, well, when do I teach? You know, I try not to teach at high noon.
You schedule around that.
Right. And I do work with a lot of seniors because of my interest in working with people with chronic health conditions. It also is very family friendly hours. You know, as my kids have gotten older, it doesn't matter as much. But when they were little, it really did help that it was family friendly hours. So that helps with that, as I can teach those early morning slots in the pool. And then in the afternoon, I can do land yoga.
Yeah. Brilliant. Another plus for chronicpreneurism, you can set your own schedule.
Exactly.
And the other thing I like about it is that, you know, if you're upfront about your issues, I find people very sort of forgiving and concerned on your behalf. So I might have something scheduled and I'm not up to it. And I know in my former, you know, career, that may have been a problem. But in this career, people understand, like I am presented as a person with MS, so people know who they're dealing with. And if I have to postpone or cancel or something, I've never gotten pushback. People completely understand. So it's nice setting yourself up as a chronicpreneur because people understand at the outset, like I'm going to do my level best, but if I can't make it one day, we'll reschedule.
Yeah.
And I get no pushback.
That's great. I have to say, I mean, I think that's wonderful that that's been your experience. I haven't had as much of that experience. I think there is an element of what your diagnosis is. Like, I think there's a lot of awareness that MS is a real problem and what that entails for you. For if I tell people when I have arthritis, I literally have been told, well, no, you don't. You're too skinny. No, you're too young.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
but you look so good.
Oh yeah. Oh, I get that one too.
Right. Because arthritis, it's such there's over 100 kinds, right? And it's invisible. You can't see it. Whereas if I told people, oh, well, I'm currently in cancer treatment, then they're like, oh, you know, wow. So I'm sure you have many chronicpreneurs who deal with these invisible illnesses, which are hard to deal with on a professional level when you're working for someone else, because it's how do you disclose? How do you get the support you need? And it's the same thing then when you become self-employed, is how much do you disclose? How does it impact you? So there is still an element of it. Is I am very open with my diagnoses because I feel like it helps to raise awareness exactly about these issues, is that people who are young deal with this. It doesn't matter what you look like. What you look like has nothing to do with your health. I mean, really? So it's not, for me, it's not just a marketing thing, you know, it is to try and raise awareness about this. This impacts a lot of people. And you look at the statistics, is, you know, hundreds of thousands of people deal with a marked number of invisible illnesses all the time at work. And we can do it on a job for somebody else, or we can do it self-employed. You know, we're very employable.
We are.
But we might need accommodations. And so it's great that you have been able to successfully get some of those.
Yeah. This has been a really good decision. It wasn't so much of a decision on my part. It was, I could no longer do the job for someone else. And so I had to come home, and then I had to figure out, now what do I do? Like, I need to generate an income here, but still be able to take care of myself. And so this worked out beautifully. So this is full, well, other than with COVID, this is your full-time work.
This is what I do now. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So,
excellent.
It takes most of my time. The difference, and it depends on, you know, what your chronic illness job is, but because I teach public classes, is I have to be somewhere at a certain time, but then the rest of the behind the scenes work is flexible. So it is a service profession in that way. Some people would have something where they have very few time commitments. And
So
yeah.
So really, knowing yourself and knowing your situation, you're better
Right.
equipped to make those decisions
And
ahead of
and
time.
so and yes, and that's really important when you're thinking about, okay, well, what is your disease and what are your symptoms and what do you need to really manage yourself? Keep that in mind, because there's days when it's very much you call in sick, you don't get paid, and you're letting people down.
Right.
Right. So I will make the choice to take steroids and go to work because it's only an hour. You could
Mm-hmm.
suck it up, buttercup, for an
Right.
hour because it's just easier. Right.
Yeah.
But that's
Right.
not everybody can do that. And you might be having a day where that isn't even, like, we all get the flu. I mean,
Right.
you can't go
Right.
to work sick.
Yeah.
So not everybody's in that position, but that definitely, to speak to the audience, is, keep those kinds of things in mind. If you need absolute flexibility, you don't want those jobs that have a public component where you
Right.
have to be somewhere at a certain
At a
time.
certain time. So true. So true. I just want to ask a question about something you said earlier about your
Mhm.
lupus, that you need to avoid the sun. Is that due to the heat of the day, or something with the sun?
Great question. So in MS, it's definitely the heat, right? So
The
you have
heat.
probably read, so the MS, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, the MS Association, both here in the United States and in the UK, has some excellent free resources on their website for the benefits of aquatics for MS, because it is a low temperature
Yeah.
safe workout. You will not overheat. So if any of your audience is looking for that, those are there. When you're dealing with lupus, it's actually the UV exposure. So for
Okay.
everyone, UV exposure is inflammatory. I mean, that's what a
Mm-hmm.
sunburn is, your cells swell, they
Right.
don't want to be
Yeah.
in the sun. What happens is when you have lupus is your body freaks out, basically,
Mhm.
and it's like inflammation. So instead of getting a little bit of a sunburn after 2 hours in the sun, and I'm relatively dark skinned. I used to be quite tan when I didn't know I had lupus and didn't manage it as well. But I literally, after an hour, I'm not sunburnt because I've had too much sun, but my skin will start to turn red and I will get the lupus rash, and it turns into, I'm feeling like I'm getting sick because my body's having an adverse reaction to the UV.
Gotcha.
The heat is not, it has to get pretty hot. I am not as heat tolerant as I used to be, and there is that element. And for some people, it's more impactful. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to be a little bit for me, but I'm not getting any younger either. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Not funny how that works.
No.
Um, so I guess I should preface a lot of these questions with, you know, I get it. COVID is a different time, but normally, is this a
Normally.
steady income for you?
It is. It's yoga, so nobody's. It's not quite starving poet wages, but
Right.
but nobody is, buying the mansion as a yoga teacher, right?
Right. Right.
It was last year. My projections were supposed to be very good. Of course, then March happened, and it was like, oh,
Hello,
okay,
COVID.
things are going to be a little different. But it's dropped dramatically. But it
Mm,
is something that I do earn. I pay myself a wage, and I was, like,
good.
last year I was an employee of my corporation. I actually laid myself off because of COVID, and to
Oh, so
reduce the
interesting. I love
regular,
that. Very
well, it
thoughtful.
just made, why pay the taxes and do all the
Right.
paperwork for,
Yeah.
it was just it didn't make the tax sense. You know what I mean? I'm getting
Right.
paid less, and it was just like, no, just lay myself off. So it's still, the corporation, and I will get paid a salary this year, but
Yeah.
I'm like everybody else. I'm doing some working for free this year.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
So how do you market yourself?
Good question. I'm gonna actually sort of flip-flop this on you because I knew you were gonna ask me who I work for. So I'm gonna tell you who I work for first,
Okay.
because that
Okay.
impacts how I market. So I have two main audiences for my work. I work with regular people who want to learn Aqua Yoga. So that would be my local classes, or I sell products online because you might love Aqua Yoga, but you don't have anybody in your area. And then I also train aquatics and yoga professionals to teach Aqua Yoga. So
Oh,
those are
very
my two
cool.
big audiences. So then when I
Okay.
go to market myself as a business, I use social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest
Mm-hmm.
to get the word out about, say, for example, the products that I offer. And then I use the professional organizations that I teach for and offer continuing education credits, with, excuse me, I just heard my son start to practice for music class, COVID land.
That's okay.
In the other room.
We're in COVID.
Right, we're all doing it. I use those professional organizations to help get the words out about the trainings. And normally I would speak at conferences for fellow professionals, and I'm working on a book contract as well. So
holy smokes, you're awfully busy.
Yes, pretty busy. So I have been offered a contract. I have to, work with some professional advice to get that signed and make sure that's the best choice. But the book's about half done, and I'm cautiously optimistic it will go. Again, it's starving, like everything else in yoga, it's starving poet wages, but I will get paid.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. All you do. So the online classes, that's intriguing to me. So is that, is it like video of you doing the classes in a pool, and then they can, oh, very cool.
Yeah, I do them. I'm probably one of the few people in the world, right, that's got high Wi-Fi. I've got the high router, excuse me, my brain just went out, the internet Wi-Fi right there I have a modest backyard pool, but right there at my pool. And you can watch me work in the water. So I'll have some people who I'm in the pool and I'm working with them, or sometimes they're in the pool, so I'm watching them, or it can be a recording that I've done in advance.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a coaching situation with the one-on-one back and forth, right? Do you have any, now you said you have some like pre-recorded videos. So is that sort of like a subscription model or a membership where people buy in and then they can have access to all those courses or all the videos?
Good question. So I have put my videos into courses because I found that it's great to have a video, but unlike a land exercise class, you can't take the video to the pool.
Right.
You can't, you can take your phone, and even if you put your phone on the little stand, you just can't see it in the sun, right? And so what I found, and the feedback I received from people, is they really like the videos because it shows them what they need to do, but it really isn't enough information that they can take to the pool and learn to practice. So it has been more effective to bundle the videos into a course so that they also get like a workbook and some printed material. I have done some videos for a subscription service, a professional who runs, it's called Fit Motivation. And my videos are available through his service. And basically he hires aquatics professionals all around the world to do videos for him and their specialty. And then they're on his service. And that is a great service to kind of give a plug for somebody else. So I have done videos for that. And then I have videos that are part of the courses. So if I'm working with somebody on the island of Mauritius right now in the Indian Ocean. She teaches yoga in the ocean, on the beach. It's beautiful. She sends me the most amazing pictures.
Thank you for explaining where that place was, because I had no idea.
It's on the east coast of Africa. Okay. It's a smaller island than Madagascar, but it's kind of, out there, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Wow.
And so she sends me these beautiful pictures, but she is an aquatics professional and she wants to learn to teach aqua yoga. So as part of my course, there's lots of videos, and then we meet over Zoom. It's great. You can connect with people all over the world.
Yeah, isn't it great? And so thank God for technology, particularly during this COVID time.
Yes.
So in that case, you've got courses that are available at a flat rate, and then add on maybe coaching.
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah. Okay, very cool. Love that. Love that model, because that's mine too. And for clarity, part of what I'm trying to do with Patients Getting Paid is just show people all the different possible ways there are to make money in a flexible remote way. So
exactly.
You mentioned that someone, he has these courses and he hires people from, different areas and whatnot, areas of expertise. So were you given a flat rate for doing that, or is that sort of an affiliate relationship?
He just gives people a flat rate because that is sort of meets with his model. Then he doesn't have the paperwork of all the licensing and having to send affiliate, it's just easy for him. And he doesn't have to deal with the whole international currency, because he really does work with people all over the world. So he just, And for me, it was really easy because he's actually here in Florida. I just drove down, but he literally, before COVID, would bring people in from Korea, and he does all the filming and the production. And then it's a technology sharing. So he gives you a flat fee, but he also gives you the content, which you can use in any way. So you can sell the content yourself.
Wow.
So it was a very fair, win-win situation. The publishing contract, obviously that's just new to me. So I don't feel like I can represent myself as knowing enough about that to give advice.
Right.
I do also sell, when I said I have that retail component, there's audio downloads. So people can think about, well, what do you have that is audio content? And I've self-published a book first. So I have my book available that you can purchase on my website. And then there's they're laminated, and so they're waterproof sequences that I sell. So, you pay the UPS postage and I send you a parcel. So I have different digital products as well as a physical product.
Multiple streams of internet income, which is the key.
Yes.
That is the key, because if one happens to go down, you're not out, right?
Unless COVID comes in, then you can't go to the pool.
But you still have stuff for sale, though.
You do. It's just, people have been, the aquatics community has been, all of fitness has been highly impacted, but aquatics has been even worse. A lot of municipalities didn't even open up their pools last summer. So if you live up north and you were expecting to go to the pool in May, your pool season was just gone.
Right.
And that's you might have heard a lot of people around the country are there's like a record construction of new pools around the country, because everybody's like, forget it, I need a pool in the backyard.
Yeah. And get this, I have to think how many years ago. It was a very long time ago, but I had people come and fill in my backyard pool.
Yes. And that just makes me want to cry. It's like,
I know. I hear that from so many people. It was humongous. It was 33,000 gallon,
nice,
L-shaped Grecian.
Sounds lovely.
When I bought this house, I walked in, loved the house, walked into the backyard and went, no. I kept it for a couple of years, hated every second of it, because I had itty bitties, just me with these itty bitties.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to keep up with, and it was green or black half the time. I never used it. All I did was clean it. I said, screw this.
But now with your diagnoses, you could be in it every day.
And with teenage daughters who would love
to
friends,
be in it too. And wouldn't you rather have them in the backyard having a good time with their friends than doing who knows what out there, right?
I don't know. I have an argument to make on either side of that. But anyway.
Right.
But I felt like I needed to come clean with you, that I feel like I've sinned against
one of
you
those,
somehow.
Yes. I have a good friend who we kind of don't talk about it, because she paved in her pool too. And it was just like, oh, how could you?
Don't ask,
but
don't tell.
She laughs at herself, because she lived in a house, she filled in her pool, they moved, bought a new house with a pool, and now they're in it all the time.
Yeah. Probably just matters where you are in life, because I just had these teenies and it just didn't make sense for me, but
it does.
So, I had another question. Oh, did you seek out that book deal? Did somebody come to you and say, we want you to write a book, or did you go to a publisher? How does that work?
I went to a publisher. Yes. And what I do is fairly niche. It's a lot of people wouldn't even have considered that you could do yoga in the pool until, of course I bring it up, and they're like, oh, well, that sounds so neat. So this particular publisher does publish yoga books. So they are a publisher. They publish more than yoga books. Yes.
Yeah.
But I went to somebody who does publish yoga books. Yes.
Excellent. And was that a long process? I mean, was that like sending a query letter and, hey, I have this book half written, or I'm thinking about writing something?
So initially, I did approach them in their process with a query letter and a sample chapter, and I approached them about writing a book for the general public to practice Aqua yoga, because that's a larger audience. Yeah. But this particular publisher, they came back with, well, really, we would like to keep it within our professional arm, because they do a lot of yoga books for yoga professionals. And they said, would you resubmit the proposal for professionals? And that's what they would like to publish.
Excellent.
So, down the road, it's basically, okay, well, this year I concentrate on this book. If I decide that it's something I enjoy doing enough, down the road I can approach a different publisher with the other book, which would be a
general
for
public
regular
one.
People. Yes.
Yeah, that's very cool. That opens up a lot of opportunity.
It does.
Yeah. And, I've often heard this said, and I think it's just borne out to be true, that you have such instant credibility when you write a book. People just respect that, right or wrong, because I have known some people that have not done a great job with books, but whatever. But it's got kind of this, I don't
It
know.
has a cachet.
It does have cachet. I'm an
It
author.
does. Right. As I will say, as a nonfiction, it's slightly different. Like nobody's going to option my book to build a
Yeah,
Hollywood miniseries or anything.
probably not. Probably
No,
not.
no.
But
But for me, having already self-published a book, I'm kind of aware of the work of marketing it. And not to say that you don't market a book that somebody else is publishing, but
right.
having gone that route, is I did want to try the traditional publishing route and kind of see. So,
Yeah. Comparison.
And then I mentioned, down the road next year, if I want to do a book for regular people, well, then I have a choice about which way I want to go.
Yeah.
It's much easier to get published again than to get published the first time.
Exactly. I bet it is. And how prescriptive are they? I mean, do they tell you how many, I don't know, pages, words, whatever? Or do you say, I think it'll be this long?
Right. It depends a lot on who you're working with. So I don't want to represent my, experience.
Right. Okay.
This particular publisher, I have worked for others. So I used to, when I first started teaching yoga, my own business was not my only job, as I was a subcontractor and managed someone else's yoga business. So I wasn't an employee. I was an independent contractor, but I was their business manager for their yoga business. And then I had my own business on the side. That person published a book through them. And I know someone else who's published a book through them, and they have both said they're very easy to work with for an author, which isn't necessarily the case with all publishers. And I've heard the larger firms tend to be harder.
Yeah.
You don't get the attention.
Sure.
And that would make sense, right? Kind of common sense.
Right. Very interesting though. I have wanted to do, and I will do at least one podcast interview of someone who specifically is an author. And because I think that's, if you are in fact a writer, or you have something to share, and you could, maybe you're not a writer, but you could have a good editor. I just think that business model certainly bodes well for the chronic community. If you can, be writing or writing ebooks. Like I've written an ebook. That's really interesting to me, because that can be pretty quick and you can delineate out things. So for instance, with MS, I wrote myself and my co-author, really, she wrote it. I just put the smart ass comments in there, to be honest with you. But that was on a specific symptom. Well, there's a whole array of symptoms. So maybe I write it on all these different, and I know it inside and out. So why wouldn't I?
Right.
That wouldn't be hard for me, but I am a writer too. So I guess if you weren't, maybe you could get an editor to help you. But it's something that I definitely want to explore a little more with Patients Getting Paid, because I think it's a great business model, as I said, for, good way to, at least with an ebook, you can dip your toes in the water of doing that too, and just throw up a website, put it up for sale, and do a little marketing and see if people are interested in what you have to say.
Right. And then a lower bar, keep in mind, is you don't have to go straight to a book, because that is a big meal to chew, right?
Yeah, right.
It's hitting that 45,000 word bar, if you've never written that much, is going to be a lot. But there is a lot of patient forums online who are looking for authors, and some of them do pay. So you might get to start with publishing articles for online outlets or traditional print publications, of which there are still a few, and they're looking for patient authors on a variety of topics. So that's true. I should bring that up. And I have earlier in my publishing journey have been printed in a couple of those.
Yeah, that's definitely, I write for multiplesclerosis.net, I do videos for them. I write for healthline.com, and I've done for Everyday Health and WebMD. Excellent. And, there's a lot of those out there. And that's a part of my Patients Getting Paid course. There's a list of all these resources and where to go. So I wish
add that to the show notes for people.
Yes, I shall.
Yes.
I wish that this list had existed when I started out, because I kind of had to
Yes.
figure all this out myself. But that's the point of PGP.
Right.
I'm leaving breadcrumbs. This is how I
Yes.
did it. This is where
Excellent.
you can go. So did you have a lot of support for doing this? Your family and friends understand what you're doing?
That's a great question. It was a little, what would you say, interesting in my marriage at first, in terms of it was challenging to take this idea of I'm going to be self-employed and work on something that is about my health at the same time I'm dealing with this new diagnosis and my health, and it's all coming together. So it was slightly ugly, but I don't think it was entirely one of those things. I think it was them all coming together at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. And most people have done this journey can speak to that, but most people, okay, they get their diagnosis and then it's like, okay, well, maybe I've had a traditional job and I'm going to transition, and there's probably a little longer, and these things are a little more separated out. Whereas mine, it was just like, here it is all at once. You got 2 kids, and my husband's work at the time was not calm and quiet, and he was dealing with a lot of stress. So there was that. I do think it's also worth saying, and we worked it out. I guess I should summarize with saying it's all good. We worked it out. He's very supportive now.
Good.
Good.
Most importantly,
but it does speak to, I think everybody really needs, as they would tell you in the chronic illness community, everybody needs a breadth of support. So you need your person who's just your real life friend, and you need your person when your disease is acting up, you can go to, and you have your partner who's your partner and your family, and then, but you need a business buddy. So don't make your spouse be your business buddy, right? So get some accountability buddy or business mentor that isn't about all that other stuff that, you're asking those people to do for you.
Totally separate.
Because that's asking those people to do too many things for you.
Yes.
And it's outside their area of expertise, unless perhaps maybe one of those people for you is already some business specialist and doesn't mind. I'm not saying it doesn't ever work.
Sure.
But I think you're better served by being respectful of other people and their needs.
Keep people in their own roles. Everybody has their own role then in your life. I like that. I like the term business buddy. I'd like to grab that from you if you don't mind. I'm just getting ready to launch coaching in Patients Getting Paid. And a big, huge part of it is accountability, and just having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and have somebody help you noodle, mastermind over ideas and what you'd be good at, and kind of what tools you would have to employ to do those. And I think the good thing about that is going to be, A, that I've already done it myself, and B, somebody like myself that both has my own business and has this chronic illness is going to be in a better position to say, I'm not sure that that's going to work real well in the type of, your lifestyle. I mean, you have to really take into consideration lifestyle, right? You can't, I can't go to work. I can't go to an office 9 to 5. I can't. That's out for me now. But I can work from here, where I can lay down when I need to, and that sort of thing. So I think, to your point, having somebody who can help you look at it from various directions and just specifically be about the business part of it, but yet knows and understands the complexities of chronic illness and how that can play into it, I think is going to be helpful. And accountability is never a bad thing. Everybody needs accountability.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to be a kind of special person not to need some accountability. I've never met one that doesn't do well by having some accountability.
Exactly.
So one of the questions before I started this podcast series, I asked the people in the Patients Getting Paid, actually the Facebook community, some questions that they wanted me to ask of every guest that I had on. And one just kept coming up, as you can well imagine, which is only for the US. What do you do for health insurance?
Oh, yes. That's a very important question. Yes. So I have the worst cop out ever is I'm married and I use my husband's health insurance.
My husband's, yeah.
Right. Because that is It is absolutely a barrier. I could not, and I'm very clear with my clients. I pretty much tell anybody if it ever comes up is I could not do what I do without my husband's health insurance because the costs, people who have rheumatological health conditions are the most expensive to insure. And my health insurance costs are crazy. So I could not do what I do without his health insurance because I couldn't afford the insurance on my own.
Right. It's such a tough subject. I mean, I want to encourage people to try this, get into it. I think it's so good on so many levels.
It's just
but that is such a barrier to entry. It really is.
It's just a systemic barrier. And when I was self-employed before, it was 20 years ago. And so the costs have just gone through the roof. I had health insurance. I paid for health insurance. I paid for disability insurance. I didn't have life insurance. I take that back. So if I was hurt on the job, I would still collect an income. And my health insurance, I want to say it was only like $150 a month.
Oh my God.
Because this was so long ago and I was young.
Wonderful.
Right. And I didn't have these diagnoses.
No diagnoses yet.
Right. I was a woman. And so this was back when they could charge a woman more. So I think I paid like $50 more a month than I would have if I were a man. But I could afford it.
That was like a vagina surcharge. What was that?
No, that's a whole nother podcast. Don't even get me started.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And that's how rheumatological conditions feel, right? It's like so surcharge for being female, all these diseases, same as MS, right? You probably feel the same way. It's like just the cost of it. So it is a huge barrier, and there is just no good workaround. It is a huge systemic problem, and as much you can make, I recognize that you can make, whether you want to call it Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, it's a political football right now, but it was an attempt to try and solve this political problem that we have to come to terms with, because it is an impossible barrier. I was watching TV last night and I saw that 12 million people have lost their health insurance because of COVID. And I just, because those are people who are still employed.
Because it is here in the US. I always have to say that because you can hear this all over the place.
It's basically, it's those people, their hours were cut down enough that they no longer qualify.
32 hours. Yeah.
Right. So you're still employed and now you still don't even have insurance. It's like, this is crazy. It's how can we, as a society, even if you are function?
Even if you are full-time, to have, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a second, but to be, to have health insurance tied to an employer is wrong on so many levels, not the least of which is that some people have really horrific, shitty bosses, and they feel like they have to stay. And many people have really horrific, shitty spouses, and they feel like they have to stay because they have their health insurance through them. So that's really all I'm going to say about that. So you can tell where I fall on this subject, but I think most people with chronic illness, anyone who has been down this path of having these ridiculously expensive health issues, I think probably agrees with all of this. And when I talk to international folks, they're like, what is wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people? No kidding. I just interviewed somebody from Canada, and this question is on there, what do you do for health insurance? And she just kind of laughed. She's like, I'm not in the US. I'm like, oh, that's right. Never mind. Sorry. Lucky you. I talked to my podcast editor is from England, and I said something to him today about, I need to just take a couple of days off and sit down and do my taxes. I need to, and he's like, no, we don't. I said, you don't, what do you, he's like, no. Our, whoever we work for, whether it's an employer or, we do our own contracting and whatnot, it's just, we take care of it as we go. There's no taxes that we do at the end of the year. I'm like, oh my God. Take me, somebody else. Where can I be expatriated? Anyway, I digress. Do you have any apps or special tools that you find helpful either in your work or in dealing with chronic illness that you could share with the community?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that, and I have to say I don't use any that are particularly special. I mean, like Instagram. Okay, you could have Later, you could have Planoly, you can have Hootsuite, right? I don't have one that I would say, oh, well, that's the one. I would share that for anybody, especially just starting out, having been self-employed for some time now, when you add up all my self-employment, is I would really recommend people think about the profit first model. And you can get that book from the library. You don't have to spend any money on it.
Okay.
And think about the number one thing in your business is you pay yourself first, not the people who publish all those apps. You're not in business to let software people make money, right?
True.
So like those Instagram apps I just mentioned, it's like, well,
scheduling
pay
apps.
yourself first. Yes, Instagram scheduling apps. Thank you. Pay yourself first, and then, okay, what's left over in your budget? So don't get the one that some website says is the best. Get the one that fits in your budget, and then think about, okay, well, when your business grows, and then you have the funds available after paying yourself, what one becomes a better choice for you at that time.
That's great. That is super good advice. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
so
really
I have
helpful.
had Canva. I started with the free plan.
Right. Me too.
And then I used it enough. It was like, that was actually one of my first purchases, because I do a lot of graphics stuff obviously there's a big educational component to my work to get the word out. And then something like those Instagram schedulers in the past I used later. COVID has impacted my work. I have to make some cost cutting. I chose when it was up for renewal, I chose a different app that was cheaper because I need to make some different choices.
Yeah.
So I would really recommend people, that's an area where you are absolutely under control of the costs. If you have to buy your business license, you have no choice there. Apps, you have a lot of choice in the expenses, and make sure it's fitting into your long-term financial goals. It's not about what is the brightest, shiniest app.
Yes, that's a great point, because you will hear in this online world, it's constantly new apps, new shiny objects, new, squirrel. And it's so easy to get excited about them and get pulled in a different direction. I have had to really say to myself on a number of occasions, okay, make a decision and stick with it. There's going to be something new probably tomorrow, but don't get distracted by it. If this is good and serves you for what you need it to do, quit looking for anything else, because that's just taking up extra time you don't have. So just find a tool that works for you, that fits into your budget, and then quit looking unless it doesn't serve you anymore, and then go back and look. But it's this constant, there's always something new. There is always something new.
Right. Don't be a crow.
Keep up with that. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And how about organization? So this is something that keeps coming up. Like if you can start organized, or at least get organized and stay organized, that's going to help you in your business and in your life, right? So do you use things like, a lot of people have questions about health insurance and about bookkeeping. So do you use QuickBooks or just a spreadsheet, or how do you handle the organization of your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I use QuickBooks partly because, as I started in the beginning and told you, there's kind of all these different arms. There's different tax implications for those, right? Yeah. So I have to keep that tax stuff, especially like sales tax, quite clear. I mentioned I did put myself as an employee, which was actually the long-term goal, but COVID has changed things. And so I have to kind of be pretty tight on my bookkeeping. And while a spreadsheet is simple, especially in the beginning, it can get pretty hard as these things, as the regulatory burden goes up and the different income streams go up. So that's, and I hate bookkeeping. I will fully say it's like, that is the number one. I used to, in my previous career, pay an accountant, and that is my number one thing. Like last year, that was my goal. It was like, I'm going to make enough that I make my income goals, and I'm going to pay a bookkeeper. And then COVID came, and now I'm still doing it. And it's like, okay, next year I'm getting this off my plate, because I really hate
that's my number one also. That's my goal, is to pay for a bookkeeper, because I hate it too. I really hate it. I hate numbers. So you've mentioned a couple times you made yourself an employee. So you obviously set up a business identity.
Yes, I am an LLC. So something to think about is, and this gets into, you should really talk to an attorney depending on what you want to do for your business. But for example, if you're going to coach other people with chronic illness, what are the liability implications of that in your state? I obviously can't speak to that for you. So that's something you need to get clear on. And is there a business entity style that's going to serve you better based on what that regulatory requirement is in your state? So I am an LLC. because I can't knock on, well, I guess I could knock on wood. I've never had anybody get injured in my yoga classes to where it's a problem. I mean, I've had people get sore, but that's why they come, right?
Right.
I mean, somebody get hurt. And I do work with people who have a lot of problems. So I'm already on that bigger bar and I'm aware of it.
Sure.
So there is a layer of protection by me being an LLC. Obviously, I also have insurance. So you need to find out, are there any kind of insurance requirements with the activities you're going to
whatever you're going into,
partake into, and work with somebody in your field. So I say that because I initially had my yoga insurance through a firm that did yoga and a lot of land-based stuff. I never had a claim, but I don't want to go into this long story, but they basically messed everything up. And it was just like, oh my gosh. So I ended up going with a firm that does a lot of aquatics professionals now. So try and deal with a firm in your field because you'll get better service.
Yeah, they understand the implications, right?
Yes.
So just to be clear, an LLC is limited liability corporation, meaning that people could not attach to your personal funds, your house. They couldn't go after your personal wealth because of an issue that they had with something through your business.
Exactly. And I'm what's called a sole member. So if people are thinking, they hear, oh, corporation, and it's like, well, don't I have to have like stock and do all these things? No, you don't have to have that hurdle, but you do have to file with the state. And there's some things you do there. If you're going to have a fictitious business license, if you're going to have a business name. And so it's instead of mine is just my personal name, but I actually, when I started, do a fictitious business name. So I had to, put the notice in the paper and file that. And so there are, like any business, a chronic illness business isn't any different regulatory wise than any other business.
That's right. That's right. And I personally believe in organization right from the get-go and set yourself up legally, protect yourself. So I set myself up with an LLC right away. Have spoken with people about insurance. It doesn't really isn't really a requirement for what I do, but I just think it's really smart. And I think every state has the SCC, the State Corporation Commission, and that's just a really great resource to find out what is required and what is suggested and all the different options that you've got. And I found them to be incredibly helpful. And then things like we have a small business development center through the small business SBA, Small Business Administration. So you can kind of do a little search on those and find those offices, even if they're not near you, especially now. Gosh, you don't need to be near anybody for anything anymore. Jump on a Zoom call and that's what they're there for. I mean, they're free. It's free resources, it's free information, and it's free help. So, but I think if at all possible, when you're setting something up right from the get-go, set it up to be organized, legit, insured, and an identity, business identity that you can protect yourself. So sounds like you did all that too.
I did, and I had a slight advantage of having been self-employed before. So those, for me, that wasn't kind of part of the hurdle. So if anybody's hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, as you just said, there's the Small Business Administration, there's SCORE, Society of Retirees Executives.
They're excellent.
They offer free counseling. A lot of cities or municipalities will have a business development office separate than the Small Business Administration, which is federal. So if that is one of the real barriers for you, most of them offer free classes. So you can go take a class on which business model is best for me. How do I deal with an attorney, deal with insurance? So there is a lot of free resources on those getting started aspects of business that you can use. So don't make that the hurdle, right?
Right. Great point. Yep. Don't get overwhelmed. And even, so I don't know how you set your LLC up. I did it completely, and this was a long time ago, but I did it, through the mail. I just downloaded the forms I needed, filled everything out, sent it in. And I had some questions and I called the SCC and they walked me through it. I mean, it really was not hard. And I think I paid $100
It depends on the state. I actually was a corporation for my other business in Washington State, and again, this was 20 years ago, but you had to use a paralegal, and I got this big binder with like an actual like official metal seal. You know, I had to.
Wow.
Yes, because I had to have my stamp, my
Oh,
stock stamp, because
yeah.
I was the only shareholder, but I had to be the shareholder. So
Right.
states are different.
State by state.
But the sort of bottom line point is they want to help you. They want you to be in business, and they actually do want you to succeed. I know sometimes they'll kind of feel like they don't, but they do want to collect their fees and their money, which means you have to succeed. So if you need help, call them. That's what they're there for.
Exactly. And if you feel like they are dissuading you from what you're wanting to go into, consider why. They're probably helping you not go towards something that's going to not work out for you. So don't take that as a reason not to continue to find something that is going to work, but they know what they're talking about. So utilize those services. That's what our taxes are going to pay for. So anyway, love that. Okay, the big question, Christa, what advice would you give to other chronics who want to do something more flexible or remote, either full-time or as a side hustle?
I would say see what speaks to your passions. So if it's just about making money, is it just adding more shoulds to your life, right? You're a chronic illness patient. You already have a ton of shoulds, like, taking the taking the garbage out and doing the kitchen and taking care of kids, your family, whatever work structure you already have is already so many shoulds. So think about this as, well, if you could get paid to do what you most want to do, what would it be? Right? So who is it that said, if you get paid to do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? You would hope that you could be that person, like me, who says, well, I get paid the starving poet wages, but I'm still going to go to work and work a full day tomorrow because I really do love what I do and believe in what I do. And I would hope that whatever you choose to partake in is as equally fulfilling.
I love that. Yep. And serving people, I don't know, you just can't go wrong. It feels so good to help other people. It's a payment in a different way. It may not be monetary, but it fills up my account.
Yes, I used to help animals. So now Now I help people, and I do make that connection for people. It wasn't obvious to me at first, actually, but then I realized in the end it was like, oh, well, I used to help animals that were limping, not limp, and now I help people not limp.
Right.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
You have a heart for it.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn more about you or your online business, where can they find you?
I am at ChristaFairbrother.com, and that's spelled CHRISTA, Fairbrother, just like it sounds. So it's as in Frank, AIR brother.com. It is a bit of a mouthful, but it's pretty easy to spell out. And relevant to the chronic illness community, if you wanted to hit search, that's the easiest way to help people remember, is I have a free downloadable Aqua Yoga for Lupus sequence to support the lupus community. And there are lots of resources out there on my website as well for Aqua Yoga for arthritis in general. So, and that includes osteoarthritis. So if you're having any trouble finding those, you can just send me an email, which is my first name, Christa@ChristaFairbrother.com.
Excellent. Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story with us, Christa. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best in your chronicpreneur endeavors and in your health and in your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Take care.